So I would like to welcome everyone to the cool stuff, the technology to support mastery grading. As we've said in all of our sessions, we are recording this webinar. We do plan to post the recordings and the slides for you so you can review them later. We retain the right to rebroadcast and distribute this recording. And by participating, you are agreeing that your contributions become part of the recording. That includes video, audio, chat, and Q&A. So right now there are 3 parallel sessions going on, and you may jump from one to the other. The one that this one is the cool stuff technology to support mastery grading. This will have several short presentations of fun ways that we use technology to help support this. The other 2, there is another cool stuff that is focusing on students, and then a poster session. You can find the links to all 3 of these at the link listed below, the masterygrading.com schedule. Wanted to remind everyone of, we still have the same 3 ways of communication from the chat or the Q&A. To my presenters, I will be doing the slideshow. So if I need to move or go back, please let me know. Or if you are doing one that you need to have the screen shared to share something, please let me know. And our first one up from University of South Alabama, Stephen, and I'm going to say the last name wrong, so. Oh no, is he not here with us yet? So are you there? Are you there, Stephen? Okay.
It doesn't look like he's a panelist.
Okay, so let me see what I do. All right, apologize, have a slight technical issue. Okay, are you there now, Stephen?
Hello, can you all hear me?
There we go.
Let's see. Hi. Okay, great. I did wonder if I was supposed to look different than when I was not a panelist. Okay, let me set this. And yes, I will need my screen shared for this presentation. So if I just click screen share and share this window, can you all see a website? Okay, then I guess I'll go ahead and get started. So hi, I'm Stephen Klontz from University of South Alabama. I'm here to show off an app that I've created called Master It. Real quick, I'm going to show you the built version that I used in differential equations and linear algebra in recent semesters. So the idea is this, you want to, for each standard, suppose I have a standard for being able to solve a homogeneous second order linear initial value problem. There's only a few different ways perhaps I'm interested in assessing this. And so you can see here I have some that solved a trig, some that solved exponentials, and I wanted to be able to generate, this website has many, many more than any student. I need to reduce the number because some students try to do all 50, and I have to tell them, no, you're not meant to do all 50. This is just a bunch of examples. Do as many as you feel you need. And so I have these for differential equations and linear algebra. And this is what they can use to, for free. This is a static website. You can go to it right now. It's masterit.clonts.org. And if you do go to it, what I wanted to build, like many folks here, I've built lots of different tech to help me teach my classes, but I wanted to create something that y'all could use, anyone who's watching this right now, by clicking this CoCalc link here. It'll pull up. It takes a few minutes to boot up, so I pre-did that portion. But it'll pull up. You don't need any sort of account. I'm in incognito mode right now, so this is something you could do right now. And you can click on README, which is basically just there in big capital letters to tell you to go to the generator file. So let's say you want to write your own randomized mathematics problems. So let me just walk through this example really quickly. I'll skip the documentation and just show you what I've got going on here. And so all you have to do is write a few lines of code. This is SageMath, which is a superset of Python notation. And so here we have some code, and the idea is that every time I run this short code, it spits out the mathematical objects that I want the problem to be about. So in this particular example, I'm doing slopes of the standard equation of a line. And so once I've got that built, then I can write a template, as I do down here. I tell it I want to write an exercise. The statement of the exercise is find the slope of the following equation. I have a way to spit out the random data that my code generates. And I can also write the answer if I want to have that as well. The slope is slope. And you can see down here in this little preview, every time I rerun this, it spits out a different exercise for me. Now, if I want to use this in a class, then it provides the HTML source. I can copy paste that into my LMS, or the LaTeX source if I want to copy paste that. Probably don't want to copy the answer, but I can copy paste the question into my quiz. So this is a small part of a bigger project that actually it'll automate generating all the quizzes and such for me. That's not ready to use by anybody, but I did want to create this so that, like I said, you can go to masterit.clonts.org right now, click CoCalc. You can get into this and you can make a copy, and you can start creating your own. This will be saved for just you. It won't write over. It won't write over anything that I have right now. You can create your own problems. So I think I have 2 more minutes. I could write a question about the product rule, right? So for the product rule, I need a first, which is going to be x to the a. I need a second, which might be a random choice of sine, cosine, exponential function. That won't show up because I need to tell it to show up down here. So let's throw in a function. It's first times the second. So now I have different random, I should probably spell function correctly. And then I need the derivative of that function. So maybe that'll be first times the second, take the derivative of it. And you can now see that it's producing my product rule results down here. So the point of this is that it's very quick, very easy. You can do it right now on your web browser, no installation, no anything fancy required. And then now I just need to tell it to spit out the function instead, the derivative instead. And now, so instead of find the slope, find the derivative of the following function. And the derivative is. So that's about all the time I probably have for this pitch. So the idea is I would love to have not just me using this, I'd like to have a community of folks using this. Maybe send me an email. You can get to it from the masterit.clonts.org website, or just ping me on the Slack for Mastery Grading. I really would like to build up a library of these sorts of problems so that if you have a standard that matches one of these types of exercises, anybody could just quickly generate problems for assessment and reassessment as quickly as possible. Thanks.
All right. If you are done, Stephen, if you could stop sharing, thank you. I'm gonna.
And yes, that was a pretext for someone who asked in chat.
Hold on, I have. Okay, then up next, there is a R package for that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Bradford X. I'm from Grand Valley State University. And this talk is going to highlight how I use R to generate various types of reports for my students and also for my own feedback so that I can learn from it. Hey, Robert. So my current workflow, or my past workflow was students would turn in an assignment, and then there's boring old me at the top that I have now these two responsibilities to do. I have to give students this personalized feedback, but I also want to retain all that information that I was collecting so that I can actually analyze it and use it for my own improvement or seeing what items maybe need to change for my testing. So my tired way of doing this is to do this for each student. And if you want to go to the next slide, this one is just, it's one back. So this is just an example of like a rubric that I would give a student. This might be in your learning management system where you have it already set up. I can specify, I guess I'm not pointing, but you can see the different areas that I'm pointing to, or like for each criteria, what mark I would give them, and if I wanted to give them any additional marks. What I'd like to do is keep all of that information because I want to use it to help me see how my students are doing overall. So if you wanted to do the next slide, please. So my new workflow is that as a statistician, I should start with the data first. So I'm going to create the spreadsheet as I'm giving students feedback, and I'm just going to start there rather than typing it twice. And then I'm going to use that spreadsheet and my go-to workflow with R to generate multiple reports. And I can use R to analyze the data however I need, but it's already in my tool of choice. And the other really neat package in R is R Markdown, which I can then use to have that automatically generate each report from each row of my spreadsheet that I'm creating. And then the next slide is just an example based off of that previous rubric. I turn every student into a row, and everything that I want to tell the student is going to be a column, just because that's how I know that R is going to like it. And then I can take all of that and then generate, it's like a mail merge if you ever use that in Word and Excel, to generate a unique report for students. And so I don't have much time to go over all of it, but on the next slide is a link to a very basic GitHub repository if you feel comfortable to go through that, or you can always email me and I'd be happy to set up a time and show you how I use it in my other classes too. And I think I went short on time.
All right, well, thank you. I didn't see any questions yet popping up in the chat, but if you do have questions, please list them. If we have time, we'll also come back to the questions at the end if there's time. Moving on to our next one. Beth, are you, is she here? Okay. Is Beth not with us right now?
She's in chat.
Yeah, I was looking for her. Not sure. Okay, Beth, are you able to talk now? All right, Beth, you should be a panelist now. If you unmute yourself, you should be able to. Okay. So Beth, I'm going to move past yours and go to the next one, and we'll see if, while the next one's presenting, we'll see if we can figure out why we can't hear you. So I believe our next one was Kyle.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, would you like to introduce yourself, and do you need the screen save or the screen share?
Yes, in the middle of the slides, I need it.
Okay, let me know when.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, so if you go to the next one. So, yeah, so I'm Kyle. I'm from Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. So for those of you that don't know, this is a sort of quote unquote elite liberal arts school, 2,300 students. So if you go to the next slide. So the class I was doing this in, this was a class I had originally taught using traditional grades, and then I converted it to mastery grading both of the semesters last year. So this is just a gen ed class that I call Math and Politics into 4 sort of distinct units. And then I also have some writing assignments throughout that sort of give the, tie the theme of politics throughout it. If you go to the next slide. So I was using Google Sheets. For me, it was really most important in the mastery grading approach to make it simple and make it transparent, right? And so what I was doing, and I'll share the screen in a minute, but logistics of this was just for on my end, I wanted to just have a master sheet with 1 tab for every student. And, I obviously can't share the whole thing with students, but I can have individual separate files for each student with an automatic sync from the master file. And I will say that my institution is not a Google institution. We're Microsoft, but unfortunately, at least I could not figure, I don't think Excel Online had the same capability. So I needed Google Sheets to be able to do this, but it actually works really nicely. And so my main features of this were just using checkboxes, conditional formatting. I also wanted to have tracking, tokens, or if you do some version of retakes. And I also had like a built-in grade or a progress bar as well. So let me see if I can share screen and just show what it looks like. Oh, can you allow me to share screen? Yeah. Okay, so I will share this. Okay, so here is an example. So here's a template, and I have a link to this at the end if people are interested in using it. Plus, I have instructions on it. But this is just sort of my general form of this, where I was splitting up my main units in this class because they were really distinct. It was easy for me to do that. And I just chose that I wanted to separate my objectives by procedural and conceptual, just to sort of, get at the types of thinking that I wanted from my students. And then I also had some sort of general like course specific things or like overall writing reflection assignments. But essentially all it was is, I give a quiz or an exam, I know the questions that I'm testing, I know what they correspond to. And so here I'll write out like a short phrase that describes the objective. And then on my learning management system, I would have a PDF that has a more detailed explanation of what the objective specifically is. So this one, yeah, I had a lot. I had about roughly 80 for my entire course, but it's breaks down pretty nicely. So I just go through, I check off the things they get. I have it conditionally formatted. They love seeing green, right? And so you go through and you see on the top here, I have this sort of overall grade bar. Now, you don't have to have an F here because, it's not really relevant until the end as they start getting up to these higher grade, where the actual grade bands. Because I kept it simple. The first semester I did this, I used a bundling approach. And then the second semester, I just sort of said, I'm going to just straight count how many objectives you've mastered, corresponded to a final grade. In my version, I think I got rid of the F part of this function, but just so you can see what it looks like. But anyway, this just continues to scale up. So it's just like a bar graph thing. And then it's also nice because I have the token tracker as well. So everything is on one page. So as they use tokens, I just sort of check off. I'm like, okay, you know, and just for my own purpose, I usually just write the date on there and, you know, just to sort of keep track. But this is really, you know, keeping everything in one page and keeping it, you know, especially for like a gen ed class, I want it to be really easy to students. So as soon as the add drop period ends, I just individually share with each of the students, have their link, tell them to bookmark it. You know, they're never going to ask how they're doing in the class. It's very clear at all times where they stand. And, you know, so again, I did in this tab, then we have a link. I have some just, you know, brief instructions of like, you know, a couple of the key things you're going to need more. The syncing information is the really important part. And once you just generate your template, then everything sort of becomes easier. Then all your grading ever consists of is just checking boxes, right? And making sure that, you know, you keep track of their tokens as well. And so for an example, like this was at the end of the semester, what like somebody's sheet looked like for my particular course. So you can see, right, I have the progress bar on top, where they ended up in the grade band, their token use that they went through, and then just, again, what things they did and didn't do. And then just as a small note here, you'll see that in the first 2 units, this is from the semester that just finished. So in the first 2 units, I had my procedures and concepts that were being tested on quizzes and exams that were sort of traditional. And in the second 2 units, you see I didn't have those things, and that was just a result to remote learning transition, where I sort of moved the class to a more module-based, week-by-week sort of format, and just had them correspond to assignments. So I organized them by weekly objectives in that sense. But I mean, again, it's sort of flexible enough that it wasn't a big deal. I moved some things around, copy and pasted it to each of the students' things, and then it automatically synced. So I think that's all I needed to show on that. So Robert, can you share my slides again, please? So if you go towards the next couple of things, yeah, so that I put in my, the link. And so if you go to the next one, just a couple student feedback things, not really great. And then the next one I think should have my links. Yeah, so here, I have a template to the Google Sheets that I was just showing you. If you use that link, you know, you can make a copy of your own, play around with some of the stuff, have a look at the code. And then also I have I have a series of blog posts on my website that I wrote about what I did with mastery grading as well. So hopefully that helps.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Beth, were you ever able to get your mic working? Okay, doesn't appear so, so we're going to keep going. Next up is Matthew, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Monahan. I'm a math professor at Framingham State. And so seeing everyone talking about custom exams, reports, I did the same thing, but I don't have the tech background. So I wanted to use LaTeX, right? That's what I knew. And I'm going to tell you something that will either be world changing or not matter to you at all, which is that LaTeX can read in a CSV file. So you can take your Excel gradebook, export it, and have LaTeX read it and create custom exams, custom progress reports. And before I discuss this spreadsheet right here, specifically some of the equity concerns I wanted to talk about, I implemented this for college algebra. And when I started at Framingham State was their first semester doing co-requisite remediation. And one of the things I was seeing was students were getting co-requisite remediation, learning skills that were out of sync with the assessment. So they were getting help, they were figuring it out, and then not really having an opportunity to show me what they had learned. And that was a blended section. Only some of the students in the course are getting that remediation and some are not. Okay. Also at Framingham State, I have students who work full time. who commute an hour plus in traffic. They are parents. They take care of their parents. And so I was really concerned about implementing retesting that would give some students a structural advantage over others. So I wanted all of the testing confined to the actual class period. So to do that, I wanted to have custom exams for each student based on their progress. So what I did here, these are my colleagues, by the way. This is not actually a grade book. And I have negative numbers corresponding to skills that have not yet been met. Positive numbers correspond to objectives that were met. And this was just me tracking how many attempts it took before students met objectives. And that was only for my own just curiosity and data. That didn't impact their grade. If you achieved mastery on the third try, great, full credit. Okay. So what you would do is you would track your grade book, then you would export it as a CSV. And could we go to the next slide? All right. And so then when LaTeX reads in the CSV through something I'll show you in a second, I would create custom progress reports for each student. So here, positive numbers mean they've completed objectives, so we could list what they've completed. Negative means it's still is remaining, and I could show them what's on their next test. And I built this little progress bar with some if then else statements. Checks are what you've accomplished. Question marks are what is still possible given the remaining exams during the semester. That was really helpful for buy-in for students that struggled on exam 1 to see that every check mark was still there. They could still get through every single thing. All right, can we go to the next slide? All right. Then also same thing to read completed or not, we would build custom exams. So it would go through and negative numbers mean they hadn't completed that exam yet. So it would add objective 7. Right, this is from my solution. So I had it also tell me how many students got that question, but it would look almost identical minus that part for the students in the course. All right, and I had a little box that I could check to show them they had completed that objective. And so the way this works, if we go to the last slide, is I use the CSV simple package. And so it will read your CSV, and column headers then become commands you can reference. So that first paragraph would say, after exam completed exams, you have demonstrated understanding of student objective total objectives, and your homework grade is homework grade. And so it'll read row by row by row with each one as a student, and it'll change all of these values. So I could actually hand them their progress reports, hand them their customized exams in class. Now, when I submitted this a while ago, and since then I've seen the way equity is really used as a sanitized term. And so I want to be really clear, I also implemented this in the wake of some hate crimes on campus. And Black students were afraid to walk across campus at night. I didn't want assessments in the evening. I was also really concerned about who was able to keep retesting and who was not. In the same way we're thinking about which colleagues are able to make progress on research right now and are not. So I would just ask that we all think about that as we're implementing different policies going forward in the fall. Thank you.
All right, Beth, are you there yet? Oh, we don't know what's going on with Beth. She's there, she's unmuted, but for some reason. So moving on to Jared. Oh no, is Jared not here either? Sorry, all the panelists were supposed to have been set up as panelists. I'm not sure why so many got thrown in as attendees. All right. Jared, if you unmute yourself, can you speak now?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, so my name's Jared Warner. I'm currently in New York, but will eventually be next year, I guess this coming fall, at University of Southern California. This is going to be very similar to Professor Monahan's presentation. I guess I just used a different mechanism. I use Python to personalize assessments. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about maybe what I'll call the reassessment problem by way of this reassessment flowchart. So a lot of mastery-based grading structures follow some sort of flowchart like this. You start out with an assessment of an outcome, and if a student masters that, well, then the assessment is finished. And if they don't, and if it's not the end of the term yet, then you have some sort of reassessment mechanism, and you can continue that loop and, you know, for outcome 1 or outcome 2 and so on and so forth. But the problem is, can we design a reassessment mechanism that responds to each student's particular outcome vector as it evolves throughout the course? You know, if you have 50, maybe 20 outcomes, every student is going to have a particular rank or level being achieved in their outcomes, and it's going to be changing. And so if I want to be reassessing students, they sort of each have a particular reassessment need. So that's what I call the reassessment problem. And if you go to the next slide, I'll discuss sort of one attempt at a solution. So I helped develop a Python script with a friend of mine that takes in gradebook data and a question bank as sources of data. The question bank, you can think of it as just multiple questions for each outcome you might be assessing. And out of the Python script, it will generate these personalized exams with students' names printed at the top of them. So here's the pseudocode for the script. Basically, you know, if a student has previously mastered an outcome, that information comes from the gradebook, then of course we don't include any question for that outcome. Else, if a student has satisfied some possibly vacuous reassessment requirement, so you know, some professors who implement mastery-based grading, they want their students to demonstrate something before they get a chance to be reassessed. It could be, you know, maybe you just get it for free if you have a token, or maybe you just get it for free as long as this semester is not over, in case that would be a vacuous reassessment requirement. But in any case, if they have, if they have satisfied that requirement, then you include the next question from the bank for that outcome. And then if they haven't mastered the outcome and they haven't satisfied the reassessment requirement, then they don't get to see that question. So go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll give you a sense of what the output looks like. So here's an example output. I call my assessments or my exams, I call them opportunities. So, you know, maybe at this point in the semester, we've already had opportunity 1. And obviously on opportunity 1, some students had success on certain outcomes and others had less success. So student A will come and, you know, she will see questions that assess level of mastery on the new outcome. So what we've done since opportunity 1. But notice at the bottom of her exam, she will also see new questions that reassess things that she did not master on opportunity 1. And student B, you know, her classmate, will see the exact same questions for the new content, but will also get a chance to revisit, you know, his outcomes that he was not able to master from the first opportunity. So this kind of solves the problem that Professor Monahan was talking about, is that this allows me to do reassessment in class. One challenge here is that these assessments can get a little bit long if students continue to satisfy the reassessment requirements, but yet they don't master any of the old stuff. Well, in that case, obviously students are free to leave questions blank with no penalty. They can try as many questions as they want, no penalty. It's just a way to give them a chance to revisit their old outcomes that they might have struggled with, and obviously to incentivize revisiting those. Students received opportunity trackers to anticipate the outcomes they would see. So they could see, oh, on this next opportunity 3, I'm going to get the new questions, the new content we've done, and then here are the old questions that are going to show up for my opportunity, so I can be prepared to demonstrate mastery. And then if you just go to the last slide, just some references. So the package is called JWPO. You can access that at the Python package index. It stands for Jared Warner's Personalized Opportunities. I did not name it that. My coworker, my colleague, Grant Jenks did. So if you are interested in doing something like this for your own class, my friend Grant has actually said he'd be willing to work with you, so you can be in touch with him. I guess I didn't put my email there, but if you want to reach out to me, it's hjwarner@usc.edu. I'll put it in the chat. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Moving on. Thank you very much. And if you would please put your email in the chat. And welcome to California. So our next one up is Martin Jackson.
Al, Robert, can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, good. So Robert, I'm going to go to sharing screen.
Okay, let me stop here.
All right, so let me pull that up and get myself organized here. There we go. There's the schedule. We don't really want to see that. So what I'm going to show you is a, gotta move some of the windows out of the way. There we go. Is a prototype for an online system that was developed by 4 computer science students as their capstone project. We'll see their names in a little bit. And there's really 2 main pieces of functionality in this. One is to be able to generate quiz problems, mostly I think in the context of reassessment of a student wanting to do 1 or 2 quiz problems that are connected to learning targets, maybe proctored by somebody other than the instructor. And then the other aspect of the functionality is to record ratings for those quiz problems. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. I'm going to log in as an instructor. There's logins that are designed for proctors and they wouldn't have access to the grading aspect. So you get to choose some courses, 2 courses that are set up here. I'm going to go into one. So what this is, most of the content in here is from my first attempt at mastery-based grading last fall in Calc 1. So I have things organized by subjects, 4 main subjects, and then within them specific learning targets. So up here at the top, different menu items. I'm going to go into learning targets, view the learning targets. So here's all my learning targets, subject, and then the specific statement, functionality for editing or deleting those. There's also functionality for adding or deleting whole subjects at one time. So we can build in all the structure there of what the learning targets or learning objectives are. Functionality for viewing students. We can add students one by one. I'm going to just go to the student list, and here we can actually see the 4 students, Spencer, Leah, Leif, and Eli were the 4 computer science students who developed all of this, and then I've added myself as a student here. This is also the place where we can be grading and viewing grades. I'll come back to that in a minute. So back to the course homepage, we can generate quizzes. I'm going to go into this, create a quiz. And so the way we generate a quiz is we go in, look at our list of learning topics, and pick off the ones that we want to have included on the quiz. And right now, I actually only have templates set up for these first 2 learning targets. And then once we've picked the learning targets in, we can pick them from multiple subjects, but I only have 2 set up right now. Then we just hit generate quiz and fill in an ID. This right now, it would be ideal if this had a pop-up, a pull-down menu of all the students, but it's entering manually right now. You can actually see the quiz up here, and then if I hit export, you can't see it, but it's exported a PDF to, let me see if I can pull that PDF up. So that's produced this PDF, so the name, date, and then the general instructions, which are built into the system and configurable, and then the 2 specific questions. So these are right now coming from templates, and I'm going to show you those in a minute. And these are just templates to show a little bit of the functionality. It's latex based, and I'll go in and do a template now. So for the templates, whoops. Hang on here, let me view my templates. This seems to be not working right now. There we go. Here's our template. So I've got templates for this first learning target. This is the one the students built, and this is a second template that I put in is actually from one of my quiz templates. So you can create multiple templates for each learning targets, and the templates are in tech. There's built into the tech, there's some commands that the students put together for generating random numbers and generating random polynomials. Not a lot of functionality built in here yet, but working on that. So when you go to create a quiz, and again, I'm just going back through this and I'll see if I can get a different set. the code behind the scenes will randomly pick one of those templates. So you can see in this case, it's picked the second of the two templates for LC1, and it happened to pick the first one again for LC2, but it'll pick randomly from the templates that you've built for a given learning target. And then if there's random commands to build random numbers or random polynomials, or even pull off a random word from a list, it'll reselect those every time you generate a new quiz. And then let me just go in and really quickly show you the grading. So if you want to grade students, you pick a student. Actually, you probably needed to pick a new, I don't think I generated a new one. Yeah, so here's the quiz, and now I would be sitting with the students' graded written work on paper, and I'd give them a rating, and then I'd submit that. I could put notes in, and then if I want to go see where students are in the class, we've got a completion table that's color coded, green for mastered. Most of these are not yet graded or not yet attempted. So there's the basic functionality. So it's about creating quizzes and being able to grade and record the grades in one system. Jake and I think this has a lot of potential, a lot of work obviously to be done. So we're going to be thinking about how to carry out those next steps this summer, and probably enlisting some more student help. It's really nice to have computer science students in the department. All right, I'm going to stop my share. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much. Next two up is Owen and Heather.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. If possible, could I go ahead and share the screen?
Okay.
Great. So my name is Owen Bezic, and I'm studying computer science and data science at Davidson College currently. I've had my first mastery grading class a couple of semesters ago with Dr. Smith, and I enjoyed the class and the methodology behind the grading system a lot, but found it a little bit difficult to keep track of the various topics. So I reached out to Dr. Smith, and we've come up with a little prototype for a dashboard that would not only allow students to easily see the grades they've gotten, but also let professors enter grades, exams, homework, or other things like that. To start, I'll just quickly go over how the classes were designed to provide a little context, and then I'll demonstrate the student side and the professor side of the application. So this is just a breakdown of how Dr. Smith graded her classes. And you can see here, there are a certain number of objectives for the course, and you start out with a few topics at a time. They gradually build on, and eventually you get to a final exam that has all of the ones you haven't mastered yet. And particularly, she did her course with a 25% homework grade and then a 75% exam grade. So then this is some contact information that I'll show at the end, but I'll go right into the actual application itself. So to enter on the student side, you just put your student ID. As it's a demo, we just have a few mock students here. So we've got our student and our professor, and right here we just have a little timeline to show when things are, and you can select an assignment for some extra details. So here it just has homework 1, the description and the data was put out. Same things for the exam. And then as a student, you can go in and view your grades. And so here it shows that we've covered 5 topics so far, and that Michael Scott, student 1, has mastered 3 of them, journeyman has 1, and apprentice has another. And there's been 1 homework, and he's got an 85 on it. And so it's pretty simple for a student to go in and view his or her grades. And the professor side has a similar aesthetic to it, with a little bit more nuance in how a professor can edit exam grades or add exam or homework grades. So same functionality here, where you can see what you've put in the past. And just a quick, just show, oh, there are 2 exams, 3 exams, and a homework. So on the professor side, when viewing exams, you can view through 3 lenses as well as have some filters to go by. So here is just showing all of the topic grades. Then you can view them by question. So here you can see how each question is doing, or by student. And all of these filters work in here as well. So if I wanted to show just the 3rd question, but for all grades, we haven't put in any grades for that. But the 2nd one, you can see when you add that one in there, grades show up. And then same thing here with homework, where we put in 1 homework and we just have the grades in there. So then as a professor wants to go and edit exam grades or to add exams, we have this tab over here, and you can scroll through and work all these filters here by the exam IDs or the topic IDs or the grades. And by clicking on a row, a modal viewer pops up to where you can easily go and change the grade to whatever it is you would like. So either master, journeyman, apprentice, or NA for non-attempt. And you can easily add an exam here. In the past, we've done it pretty linearly, where you start with a topic and end with a topic, but we can edit it so that you can include any sort of exam. And just like that, you have exam added as ID4, and now they're all in here with NAs with all the topics that were included. And it's the same sort of functionality for the homework. Add a homework in here, add a description, and then you can go in and if we're just looking at exam 4 and you want to change topic 6 and change that mastery, you can save that in there and then view. Say we wanted to view just that exam. There's nothing in there quite yet. So that's kind of an overview of all of the potential functionalities that this would have. And we would really like feedback, since we've just started developing this, and would hope to use it at Davidson or at other universities and colleges. And we think that the community would have some great ideas on how to make this a better platform for anyone to use.
Just one quick note, there's no number 1 in my email address, but we would love to hear any feedback that people have as far as features that we could add to this to make it easier. And I think we're working on getting an Excel gradebook where we can just enter grades directly in Excel and it will feed into the dashboard.
Yeah, so a note on that too is that it's currently all written and scripted in R in the Shiny package and is using SQL, but we have an option to use Excel or the Google Sheets API to put in data that way as well. So on that end, I'll go ahead and stop the screen and put in the information to contact us in the chat. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That does bring us to the end. I want to give Beth one more chance. Beth, can you? I still see her. Still see her there, and all right. So, well then, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to miss out on Beth's. But we do have a few extra minutes, so I would love to open this up for a short Q&A. So if anyone has a question specifically to one of the presenters, if you will raise your hand, I can turn your mics on so you can ask your question. Martin?
Yeah, hi, Ray. I just wanted to respond to me in the chat. There was a number of comments about student privacy, FERPA laws here in the U.S. And probably other rules and regulations in other countries. And yeah, I think that's something we all have to be really aware of. And you know, I think as we might use the system, we would probably be hosting it on our own servers. And I think okay in that sense, as long as we have adequate security, and we'd have to be consulting with our technology services about that. But yeah, I think anybody who's doing anything online, whether it's Google Sheets, or it really has to be attuned to their own institution's sensitivity to FERPA. And I know at my institution, there's a lot of sensitivity within technology services about being careful about not using third-party vendors that aren't vetted and approved by the university.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great point. FERPA is one of those things that individuals and institutions can get into a lot of trouble quickly.
Can I address that question a little bit more?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my general rule of thumb is this. I have various other tools. Like I've made my own master grading grade book. It is a web app. The trick is just don't put it on the open internet. Treat it like you would any other application, and make sure you can only access it from your own machine. And then if you want to distribute student data, you need to find a way through your official grade book or through Google Sheets, if that's allowed, if you have a Google Apps account, or do what I often, actually my app will just print out paper reports to students, and then you can pass those out on paper, and that tends to avoid the issue.
And then we also had a question in the Q&A. For the Python scripter, what is the format of your question bank?
Yeah, I answered this briefly in the chat. It's just a text file, and then the script crawls the text file and pulls out questions and compiles another text file that's then generated for each student. And then you sort of just batch print all of them, and then you have hard copies of the individualized tests.
All right, and another question, and this is for any of the presenters. Jane asked, someone mentioned ADA compliance in the chat. I know that at least one of the tools we saw today was powered by Pretext, which takes accessibility very serious. Would any other presenters like to comment on the accessibility concerns or considerations? Any of the presenters, if you want, all you have to do is unmute yourself. You don't have to get permission.
I can brag on Pretext a little bit if no one else wants to talk. If you're not familiar with it, Pretext, which is the XML language that I'm using for Master It, one of the reasons I chose it is that these randomized exercises that you'll produce are in the Pretext format, which could be used to be built out into various different formats. Right now, I won't say it's accessible yet, tech and HTML source, but also if you put that into a Pretext book, you could actually you could convert it into Braille. So that's a platform that I am really proud to have some involvement with, and I really encourage you to look into it. We're building tools this summer. I'm missing out on a planning meeting actually right now, where we're trying to build out tools to make it even easier to start getting started as an author in Pretext.
And I have a question for any of the presenters. Do any of these tools that you've brought up have any text-to-speech abilities for our DHH students?
I can just say mine was designed with LaTeX for generating printed exams, and so it inherits all of the problems that LaTeX has. Pretext is my summer project, one of them, but originally it was just designed for the printed in-class exams.
All right, so we've got about 5 more minutes. Any other questions anyone like to type or speak on? All right, then I do want to remind everybody, here in about 30 minutes, there is a completely optional session. It is basically a happy hour, just to get together and chat with each other freely. So hope that you guys, some of you will be able to join us, and we hope to have all of you back tomorrow. Thank you for all the attendees for being here, the presenters. Thank you guys for presenting so many interesting and different ways to use technology to support this work in mastery grading. And we will see you all later.